Okay, I'm going to sort of do a rebuttal to my own video, or reply to my own video I made today. I did a video talking about anger, because everybody has anger. If we didn't have anger, it wouldn't be an emotion we would experience. But there is such thing as anger for nonsense, like spilt milk, anger over toilet paper roll not being put on right, what have you, right? Nonsense anger, things that anger people that shouldn't. Okay? But the anger I was talking about now, in the video I did, I used MGTOW as an example. Had nothing to do with my own personal life. Had nothing to do with any relationships I've ever been in. I used them as an example because that's where a lot of angry people are at. It's the only reason I've done that. Okay? But let's just get this correct, okay? It doesn't matter whether it's MGTOW, whether you've been wronged by the system, the cops, sheriff's department, okay, whether you've been wronged by the courts. It doesn't matter where you've been wronged at when it's a justified situation that angered you. If you lost property because somebody stole it from you, okay, there's lots of reasons that are actually legit reasons that people get angry for, okay? And when it comes to understanding that, then you have to understand when it comes to how people are treating one another, it's no different than on a job site. If you're working on a job, it's all about what? The tool. Wanting up one another. Shitting on one another for a position for the tool. Doing on to other people that you wouldn't want done on to yourself. That's right. Doing on to others that you would not want done on to your own self. Okay? And this is what I was talking about. And I used MGTOW for a reason that's where lots and lots of angry men are at. Okay? And when you really look into the reason you have so many angry men, you find out it's justified. It's justified anger. No different than when I had the feds at my door and lost my job because I did videos online on my own days off. I had a right to be angry. That was justified, okay? No different than what happened to Jerry. Justified anger. Good reason to be angry. But I'm not going to put somebody's anger in a category and say, well, this person's anger is more important than this person's because this person had this and this happened to him and this person didn't. Because when it comes to what happens in society from our behaviors and the programming onto each other, there's legit reasons. Because even when you take what happened to Jerry, as wrong as that was and as angry as he should be over that, and he is, right? It's justified. When you take somebody that the court system raped them of all their belongings and they worked their butt off for what they got, that's justified. It's just as justified as Jerry's anger. This is what I'm trying to tell you. There's no such thing as a category unless we're talking about spilt milk, okay? And I'm not talking about spilt milk. I'm talking about the clarification of justified reason to be angry. Not spilt milk or toilet paper on wrong, roll on wrong, and shit like that. That's childish stuff. And I'm talking about something simple as any uprising that's ever happened throughout all of history only happened because of anger. Because enough people got angry against corruption. And once enough people got angry over that corruption, then they rose up against that corruption, and the people that were behind it got stopped. You're not seeing that happen with all of the wars that's going on, all of the criminal treasonous trading shit that's going on in this country, okay, and around this world. And people in Yemen and the whole 9 yards. all the useless and senseless killing and raping and pillaging of other countries' resources for power and greed. Power and greed. See, and when I used MGTOW as an example because I wanted people to clearly understand their anger. How anger can be used for positive. And you're going to say, well, but the anger is being directed. Yes, it is. It's being directed at each other and not the people behind it. That's right. The people behind it are keeping themselves clear of that anger. And that's what needs to change. Because if we don't change where we direct our anger, or recognize where the problems come from, to direct our anger in the right direction, we'll never, ever, ever get anywhere. And that's what I meant by my other video. And when I talked about love and light, that was legit. Because people get angry at somebody that posts a video up and they're angry in the video because you've been brainwashed into your TV set, don't show you that anger unless it's in a movie. And somebody comes up and they're angry in their video, I don't care if it was somebody angry because the system just screwed them. Or because they spoke out about a false flag like Sandy Hook and got attacked by the criminals. Their anger would be justified. And they would have a right to vent. And they would have a right to continue to speak out about it. Over and over. They have that right because it's justified. How would you expect to ever correct a problem if you had to bottle it up and shut up? You can't. You don't bottle up your anger and just shut up because other people don't want to hear it. Because they want you to listen to what happened to them, but they don't want to listen to what happened to you? Do you see the irony in this? And how they have screwed up this society so bad to keep us from rising against them? And that's really what it's about, is to keep us from ever coming together to rise up against them. That's what this is all about. So that they can go on doing what they're doing. They've changed the mindsets of people so bad. And this is the reason I said, I don't care if somebody's angry in a video. You know, there used to be a guy up on YouTube, he ain't even there no more because he wouldn't get by with it. And he was angry in all of his videos, and he screamed and yelled about the corruption. And he did. And he was angry. Okay? But see, you understand that that's what it's going to take for people, is to become angry, but angry at the right source. And the only way they're going to get angry at the right source is to understand who's behind doing what's happened to everybody. It doesn't matter if it's in the law enforcement and the corruption within the police department and the police state that we're living in. This is all done for the tool, order followers, following orders with no conscience to what they're actually following the orders of. Because they don't understand what's really going on. No different than with MGTOW and the women and men's issues. The majority of you don't even understand where it comes from, what's going on, and why we behave the way we behave. See, and I refuse to live in the programming, and I'm not going to even live with some of the programming that's fucked up just so I can put my dick in a hole. I refuse to. And that's my right. It's not your right to tell me I can't refuse that right. Okay, and that's how I feel about it. I don't care if I'm alone, if that's what it comes down to. Because you can never stop corruption by turning your back to it. Or by playing it's a selective thing. I have to select what truth I want to believe and what truth I'm going to disregard. Or what I want to address when it comes to anger. Like, okay, it's justified for this guy that the police state totally corrupted, okay? And he lost his home and lost this, or this guy lost this many years of his life behind bars because he spoke out against somebody that didn't want to be told on, or if it's somebody in the dating scene that's been screwed over, whether if it's a woman or a man. It doesn't matter what the gender is because it's not a gender issue. Just because MGTOW seems to you to be a gender issue, it's not necessarily true. How about WGTOW? Women going their own way. Oh, but you've never heard of that. It's the same concept. When men do you wrong, and they don't want to take acknowledgement or accountability for their wrong onto the woman, and she chose to go her own way, that's her right. And sometimes it does take walking away from a problem to correct the problem. If two people get into an argument and they continue to throw blows at each other, they don't resolve the problem. Because the anger will escalate, you'll do things and say things you don't mean, and you'll do more damage. But when you walked away and cooled off and came back later on and talked, you were able to resolve the problem the majority of the time. It's no different here. When you're talking about men going their own way, or whether if it's women going their own way, in that area, that is a justified behavior. That's the reason I stand with MGTOW. And that's the only reason I stand with them. Because that's probably what it's going to take to get people to back up and think about what they're doing to somebody. That's the reason I brought up. It's very important to recognize, do unto one as you want done unto somebody yourself. If you don't like something being done to you, you don't do it to somebody else. And then become infuriated and angry when they do it back to you. But you know, I done my last video on it's been taken out of context. There's a lot of assuming going on, assuming shit that's not true, taking it totally out of context, you know, the way you want to take it because you didn't pay attention or you didn't listen to my wording. When I said love and light, I wasn't shitting you. And it's not because there's insanity here. What is love and light? Isn't this what they want people to do rather than not recognize the issue? Like a false flag? We just need to forgive each other and be loving and care? I'm all for love and care. But not love and care with corruption or anger. You don't dump on somebody, destroy somebody's life, and then tell them they have to shut their mouth about it, or they're in the wrong for opening their mouth, or that they can't be angry about it, or you got 1 day or 2 days to be angry, and then you better be over it and not be angry no more. And if you're going to tell me that's justified, then that means somebody like in Jerry's situation, sorry, it was well over a year ago, I mean, you know, sorry, you should have been over your anger long ago, so that means you got mental issues. You know how insane that is? No, he don't got mental issues. He has the right to be angry if he's angry for the rest of his life. Because there was no justice brought to him for what happened to him. Because nobody cared. Nobody would stand behind him to go after these people. There are no attorneys that would step up to the plate. Because they were all bought off. Well, what do you think it is for men in the dating scene? Or women in the dating arena that get screwed over by somebody that's got a lot of money and they don't? It's the same thing. If the woman gets screwed over by the guy and he's got lots and lots of money and she don't, he'll take her to the cleaner in the courts. Because it's all about greed, it's all about money. Whoever can spend the most. Do you follow where I'm going here? But the behaviors that we represent on each other have been brought to us by these people and a social conditioning machine. The society you grow up in Everything you watched on your television, what was taught to you in the school system, and everything you've seen around you. The problem is all the people you've seen around you acting out were acting out on all the same stuff you saw. It's programming. That's the reason it's so important to recognize do unto somebody else as you want done unto yourself. And if you don't want it done unto yourself, don't do it to somebody else. If you don't like your medicine, don't dish it. It's as simple as that. And I don't care if you're mad at me for saying that or not. It's the truth. When I talked about love and light, it's because people get angry at somebody that made a video that might have been angry in a video. Okay, and that's, if I went back 10 years ago, you'd have seen the guy that did that regularly, all the time. And people wasn't angry with him for being angry at all. Now here we are a decade later, and people just can't handle it, can they? But have you ever seen an uprising through all of history that didn't come out of anger? Why do you think these people at the top don't want you directing your anger to them? They're going to steer your anger to the direction they want it. Whether they put on a false flag and get you to look that way, whether they divide us and get us to attack each other, they don't care. As long as we do not stand together and direct our anger at them. That's all they care about. That is the biggest thing that scares them the most. And in the dating arena, to understand what we're doing onto each other would bring the family unit back together again. And tell me I'm wrong about that. Then obviously you don't want the family unit back. Because you know full well that I'm telling you the truth. Don't matter what your gender is, you don't got a right to keep dumping on one another. You don't want to be dumped on yourself, but you're so willing to dump on somebody else. And then you're not looking at that behavior close enough to understand that that behavior came from the conditioning, which came down from where? The names Jerry talked about. That's why that's so important to talk about. But I don't think I can get that through people's heads because they want to take what I say out of context, or they want to assume, or they want to get angry at something I said. Like when I brought up Meg Tone about love and light. Oh, they're not related to blah, 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 because you didn't listen to what I said or you didn't pay attention to what I said. Love and light is to keep people from becoming angry or acting out on something like a false flag. Like what happened in Sutherland Springs. Or with Sandy Hook. Or with 9/11. Or the shooting in Florida. How many more false flags do you want me to name? I can keep naming them. It's to take that anger and steer it somewhere else. It's to teach you to get over that anger right away. To suppress down the anger. And that's one of the things that you're doing when you tell somebody when they're angry in a video that you don't like that. And that the message is skewed because you're mad. It doesn't mean the message is skewed because you're mad. It means you don't want to see the anger, so you're being bothered with it personally. And you're allowing your personal thing to interfere with you getting that message. That's what that means. You know, and to tell them they got to calm down and not be angry when they have a right to be angry. It's the same thing as love and light. It really is. Whether you want to acknowledge that or not. It's the same thing. See, so it's not about anything other than trying to get people to recognize who's brought the problems to us, what the problems are, who created these problems, why they created them problems. Every problem that we pretty much have in society right now, not all of them, but the majority of the major ones is affecting people, have been brought to us by these freaking same people. They created the problem for us. They gave you feminism. They broke down your morals. They put porn everywhere for free. They've completely destroyed the family unit. They're keeping the genders fighting one another. They're getting you to focus on the differences, which you shouldn't be focusing on. And as long as you want to just stay focused on the differences in genders, or stay focused on that false flag over there or whatever, then you're doing what they want you to do. And if your anger is going to be at that guy because he done this, or that girl because she done this, you're doing what they want you to do. It's not that your anger sometimes is, it's a whole lot of times it's really justified anger. And when it comes to the dating arena and you got justified anger, it happens over and over again. And now this person's been screwed, and that person's been screwed, and that person's been screwed, and that person's been screwed. It's not a gender issue. You got all these rich guys that fucking the girl wasn't rich to begin with, and she was dumped all over. And because he had all that money, he was able to take her to the cleaners and take her kids and take everything from her. And she's going through the very same thing that the woman did to the man. But when the man speaks up of it, oh, something reason, he's weak, he's blah, 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 or we're going to deceive you as weak. No. When you're going to say you deceive somebody as weak because they're talking about this, the only person as weak is yourself. You should not hide your anger. You can say your anger and tell what happened, and then let it go, and then later on do it again, and do it again. If there's no justice being brought or nobody's giving a shit, they keep hammering them with it. Isn't that how they got us to do what we do? They kept hammering us with it, didn't they? And then they took out a bigger hammer and kept hammering it, hammering it, hammering it. And that's all I'm saying. We keep hammering why this is happening over and over and over again until somebody gets it. Till somebody else gets it. So that they steer their anger where it belongs. Because the women don't belong mad at the men, and the men don't belong mad at the women for issues that have been created by these scumbags at the top. You belong understanding where it comes from and why she's acting that way and why he's acting that way and what it's doing to our families and what it's doing to our lives, and being mad at the appropriate people, the scumbags at the top. And then you dish that anger their way. And when you do that, if you can get enough people, that's only if you can get enough, then you could cause enough people to get mad enough that there would be an uprising. And it's the only way you'll stop these people. And if we can't do that, and you can't honestly do that, then I don't know why you're even up here speaking out if you are. You might just well shut your mouth and not do another damn thing. But bend over and take it. It's your choice. It's not up to me, you know. I'll walk away from what I'm doing right now so quick your head will swim. If you don't think I won't, you don't know me. Because it's like this. I'm trying to send a message that is legit. I'm trying to get you to understand that the anger that we have needs to be focused to the people that's doing this. And it's not going to happen as long as these men in MGTOW are mad at the women and the women are mad at them. Or if it's WGTOW, women mad at men and walked away. I'm saying I stand by MGTOW, or I would even stand by WGTOW. When you're being dumped on, you need to walk away from that. Why continue to allow the damage to keep happening? And if enough people walked away from each other, pretty soon they're not going to want to be alone. They're going to want to, and they're going to start thinking. And it doesn't matter whether it's men or women. It doesn't matter what the gender is. They're going to start thinking, why? And then maybe it'll dawn on them. And maybe if somebody keeps pointing out what's going on and why we're behaving the way we're behaving, you can click that in your head and go, oh shit, and catch yourself in the behavior and correct your own self. How else are you going to correct yourself if you can't see it? See, and this applies to everybody. I'm not discriminating against nobody. See, this is not about my personal relationships in my life. This is about what I physically see going on and understanding what needs to happen. We have not had not one uprising in all this time. All this shit's been going on for this long and this long and this long, and they're lying on your history and teaching your children lies in school. It's none of you care. Because we've lost the ability to care. Until it messes up your personal life. Then you get angry, and you have a right to be angry, and you're justified. The angry is justified. But then you're told to shut up and bottle it up. And suppress the only tool that would ever bring an uprising. Because the only tool that will ever bring an uprising against these scumbags is anger. And enough people have to be getting angry first. And that's not going to happen unless we can clearly see what's going on. Straight across the board. So it's not about hating one gender or another, or blaming one gender or another. That's why I told you in my last video. I watched it twice my own self to make sure I wasn't. Nope, and I don't disagree with anything I said in that video at all. I think I explained it pretty damn good. But because people don't want to listen, they don't want to pay attention to what I'm saying, or they want to assume things and take things out of context, that's not my fault. It's not my fault you take something out of context or you assume something. That's your fault. Stop assuming. Stop manipulating my words. If you don't understand something I said in that video, ask me what I meant by it. Don't just come at me and tell me I'm doing this or doing that. That's all I'm going to say to you, and I'm going to end this right now because I'm doing no more. I'm ending this topic right now, and I'm off this topic. And if you can't understand what I'm talking about and nothing ever changes, I'm just going to laugh at you. Because nothing's going to change unless you understand what I'm talking about. And I can't still not make it change because it's going to take enough of you people to understand where our behavior comes from. Why we're acting the way we're acting is because of everything we've been taught in our life from the time we're a little child that's been put in our face since we were born. What you perceive to be normal is actually not normal. And dumping on other people, this is why I told you it's so important to recognize do unto one as you want done unto yourself. Because I don't know many people that's going to want to be dumped on continuously or screwed over in life. So therefore, you could practice that, but I'm not telling you, it's up to you. You know, I can't do anything for you. You have to want that yourself. And to stop what's going on in our society, you're tired of all the false flags. You're tired of people, the corruption. You're tired of all the bitter and angry men in society over the dating arena. And you women are tired of all the guys that are dicking you over and screwing you over. Well, maybe we should both be looking at our own behaviors. Maybe you should be thinking about how you're treating somebody else. And it doesn't matter what your gender is. And then maybe you should look at where did you get them behaviors from. And when you do, you're going to see, well, everybody's doing it. Must be okay. Programming. It's not okay. Then when you can get that far, then you can say, well, then why are we? And then you can discover the names and families and shit Jerry's been telling you. Then you'll know where to direct your anger. But until that happens, there ain't nothing I can do for you. Okay? I've done all I can do. You either want it changed or you love being dumped on. I guess that's up to you. And as far as the anger goes, well, if you can't be angry and you can't express your anger and you're supposed to bottle it up, then that is love and light. You know, and you should be able to express your anger. What happened to Jerry, he should be able to express that and talk about that over and over if he wants. He should be able to hammer that down your throat. And why should he be able to hammer that down your throat? Because that is so wrong, what happened to him. And he should be able to hammer that down your throat because none of you would want that to happen to you. So you need to start caring about what took place. And only if we can get people to do stuff like that, then you would recognize the behaviors between the genders. You would recognize the behaviors of law enforcement onto its citizens. You would recognize the behaviors of the corruption. Whether it's law enforcement, the police state, to the government, to the wars, It's straight across the board, people. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't matter. And there's no such thing as he was wrong was more than this person's wrong, so therefore I care about his and I don't give a shit about yours. Nope, it's not an arena. Somebody being wrong is not a competition, an arena, a sport, or a challenge, or one-up somebody else that my wrong is worse than your wrong. So, get that out of your head. When it's a justified wrong, we have to care equally. Doesn't matter what your gender is, and it doesn't matter what it was, as long as it's a justified, it's not over spilt milk. That being said, I'm out of here.